just have a discussion on property taxes. I'm hearing from constituents in the UT that their property taxes, their assessments jumped, and also some of their taxes are doubling. So, some people are aware of the process just because they've been forced to learn about it, but there's a lot of people that don't understand it and they're upset. There's a lot of people who don't have the extra finances to pay for an unexpected jump in their property taxes. There are people who this is their primary residence and not their second and third home. So I have questions with Maine Revenue Service, and I understand the process because I do it in Caraton. But the UT is a little bit different components going into and so I just want to I have been with Mr. about the general fund portion, and I wanted to David about the portion that he knows about. I haven't heard about that yet. That contributes to the mill rate. I'm in ongoing discussions with Maine Revenue Service, and I would also like to host an informational session in the UT, like in the Rockwood area, where people can come and learn about the whole process, where we're at. They haven't reassessed in 5 years. I don't know if you're aware of that. I don't know what you know about it or what you don't. But so it's been a 5-year process, and the sales period was pre-COVID, and of course the sales period is after COVID. So I think people are justified in their concerns, and they need to have know what they can do about it. And there are some ways where they can, apply for an abatement or apply for tax relief on their returns. And I just feel like we need to make sure that people know what their options are. And I wanted to, I'm looking more into the calculations of the mill rate and make sure, because some people should be dropping while other people are going up. And of course you don't hear from the people that drop. There's also the issue of tree growth. There's so much tree growth in the UT, and the county doesn't get reimbursed for that like the towns do. So we have a lot of landowners that are subsidizing our large swaths of tree growth. So I just feel like it's warranting attention and see what we can do. If there's anything we can do. I know the legislature is, this isn't happening just in Somerset County, and this isn't happening just in the UT. Municipalities are dealing with this, and something needs to change to bring relief to year-round Maine residents who have their primary residence. This is their primary residence, and they're only getting $25,000 max of homestead. Or it could be 110%, but for the most part, Caraton, we've been raising our valuation, we've been raising our assessments pretty consistently, and they still only gave us 82%, and we jumped up to 92%. We're still getting shorted our homestead. It's frustrating, because I work on it every year, and we're still getting docked. And I get it, people from out of state can spend whatever they want, but there's, Mainers shouldn't be penalized for what other people are willing to pay. And I understand that the Constitution is written a certain way, so. Anyhow, I am here to see if you are dealing with the same kind of responses from constituents, from taxpayers, and if you have any thoughts on it.
Well, I'll let
Dave's
David
behind you,
go
but
first, if that's all right.
I'm sorry.
I'll let David go.
Sure.
He's involved in UTs.
Yeah, I have been receiving calls. Had one this morning with a very irate individual, and he brought up a situation. One of the problems I'm having from my standpoint is I get the tax book, valuation book for the UTs, and I keep track of every township valuation and every lot valuation. But they have not published for 2025 yet. So I'm looking at what 2024 was. The only taxes I've seen so far are my own taxes. My family has camped on Brassway Lake. Valuation last year was $108,000. This year it's $266,000. So I told everybody that called screaming about valuation. I said, calm down. Until we see the mill rate, we're not going to know the effect on your taxes. Now they've sent out the tax bills. My tax bill went up 83% from 818 to 1,500. So that's an 83% increase. Personally, that's what I've got. I'm waterfront on Brassway Lake. 106 feet of waterfront when it's not even a legal lot with modern lots, but it was cut out back in the 60s, so we predate Lurk. Back then it was Lurk. So I can basically calculate everybody's lots once I get that valuation, see what everybody's gone up or gone down. I spoke to one person in Upper Enchated Township. They have a large lot, so over 40 acres, no waterfront. So I asked her, when we were dealing with her E911 address, what did you think about the taxes? What was your tax bill like? And she said, well, my land valuation went down, she said. And we know the mill rate is 5.6, I believe it is now. It was 7.58 before. So it's almost a drop of 2 points. But if they're going up 100% on some people's taxes, I expect the mill rate to be much lower. So I know for waterfront, they really elevated everybody's taxes.
Well,
and I know of one person with just land, it went down. So until I can calculate the entire UT for Somerset County, I don't know what the ultimate effect is. So I'm kind of waiting for that book to get published.
Dave, who is it that is responsible at the state for adjusting the mill rate? Is it the board that they just added? What was that? Three more members to the board that don't live in the UT and maybe have never even visited the UT? Different board?
No, that's land use.
That's land use.
Okay.
So,
Yeah.
so if I may, and this is a rabbit hole if you want to go down it, but I spent some time looking at how the UT mill rate is determined. There's actually 3 mill rates that are blended together. So you take a mill rate to determine how much of Dave's budget needs to be raised. And then you take another mill rate based on how much state services to the UT need to be raised. And then you take the UT's portion of the county budget, which is based on our mill rate when Patrick calculates that. So you take 1.7 plus 2.3 plus 1 point, whatever it is, it adds up to 5.6. So there's actually 3 mill rates that go into the mill rate. I thought it was as simple as whatever the UT's valuation was divided into Dave's budget gives you the mill rate, but it's not. It's state services, and it's also the portion that the UT pays of the overall county budget, which as of now, the UT will probably be the highest payer in the county. Right now it's always been Skowhegan and the UT pay the most because they have the highest valuations. But if your valuation is over $1.2 billion, you're going to be higher than Skowhegan. So
I know that they raise, like in Tomhegan. Are you in Tomhegan?
No, I'm on Tonarama.
Okay.
Just off Route 2.
Well, they went from, and Rockwood, they went from a front foot waterfront of 1,100 or 1,300 to 3,000. So people are getting hit.
Who's the appraising company?
So that's a good question. But how do you know that data?
Because I spoke to someone at Maine Revenue Service.
Okay, so I think we're on the same page here, but I don't think they hired someone. I think Maine Revenue does it internally.
Yeah.
And to be clear, this is not a revaluation.
Right.
They didn't go out door to door and look at every property. They did a market adjustment, which means you take waterfront and you adjust it accordingly based on what waterfront properties sell for.
The sales.
So they did their sales ratio. If Upper Enchanted doesn't have any sales or doesn't have any equivalent sales, that doesn't touch that. But on the waterfront, you know, and Dave, God bless your family, but you're not going to sell that property for $108,000.
No.
So they raised it all based on the sales ratio.
Well, now you make a point there, because not to be contrarian here, but I often play that role. And my district is Skowhegan and Cornville. We don't have any UT property in the district, and those people that have frontage on, and it's not that much in.
Yeah.
I think Madison is probably a better example.
Yes.
People that own camps in towns in Maine pay a lot in real estate taxes, a lot more than $1,500.
Right.
And it's been my impression over the years, and correct me if I'm wrong, that the taxes in the UT have been substantially lower traditionally than like properties in the much lower. And if you're now, assessments are in excess of fair market value, or that they're inconsistent with property that's not in the UT, I'd like to hear it.
No, so that's the whole point of the Constitution. It's supposed to be fair and equitable, comparable across the state, no matter where you are. It's supposed to be between 70 and 110% of the market value. And so what they do is they look at a sales period. So for the 2020, the last time they did this was in 2020, they looked at 17, 18, and 19 sales. Now they looked at 22, 23, 24 sales, which so we should be looking at 2017 sales? Is that what you're suggesting?
No. But that's the explanation.
That's how they come up with a sales period to make things comparable in terms of the market.
The argument, Liz, the argument from my standpoint and most people's standpoint when I talk to them is not so much about the valuation. Everybody knows the property on the waterfront and other property, to be honest, in the UTs is valued much less it can sell for. So as I told everybody that called in, don't worry about your valuation. Look at the mill rate when that's established. Because we tax people to generate funds to provide public services.
Right.
What we need to find out is how much did they increase the amount of tax dollars they're going to generate. Because I know what my budget is, so I know how much I've gone up for the last couple of years. So the state obviously went up too, and I haven't seen what number we are with the county. We are still going to be behind Skowhegan though, from the valuation that I saw.
You're close up.
So that's why I came,
Skowhegan's
because
1.5 billion.
Yeah,
So we're 1.2, they're 1.5. But yeah, very few people in this county realize that the UTs generate, we're the second highest taxpayer is the UTs. So that's the way it goes. We pay more than Madison, Norwich, Watt, Pittsfield, all of those.
But I get confused on this because my guess is if I had the identical camps on Brassawa Lake and on Lake Somerset, my tax bill for the Madison camp would be a lot more than the one.
Yeah, then you get into services.
Right.
What do
You
you
have more
pay?
Okay, let's get into
you've got
services.
full-time
Let's get into
volunteers.
services. What are we saying? You have police protection up there because we provide. Okay. I live in Cornville. I don't have cops living down the street. But
The question is, if you call, assuming you have a cell phone that reaches a tower, or you have a landline, which most people don't, and you call 911, how soon before the ambulance gets to you? My camp is on Brass Way. It's right on Route 15, and I can rely on the Rockwood ambulance getting to me in maybe 25 minutes.
Well, has that been the traditional justification
And
for? Let's just say, for example, that your taxes are substantially less than my hypothetical camp on Lake Somerset. Is that just because you don't have as much ambulance and police protection as the camp on Lake Somerset? Is that the argument?
That's part of the argument. Certainly not all the argument, but that's the easiest one for me to refer to. Because the Rockwood ambulance that's going to respond to me is a rescue unit. They don't transport. Transport's got to come from 25 miles away in Greenville. So they have to drive all the way to my camp and then bring me back to the closest hospital, which is Greenville. So that's over an hour round trip.
Well, I'm assuming everyone that lives in a camp or a vacation home in a remote part of the woods takes that into its calculation. Is that there's a trade-off. I'd rather be on this remote pond in a camp than living in town because I'm willing to trade off immediate ambulance service with the solitude and natural beauty of my camp.
But the
So the choice you make.
tax collection is supposed to be directly correlated with the cost, right? You don't just accumulate taxes because that's how much you want to.
I don't want to get. I don't want to talk about it.
Well, you want to argue about it. All you want is nobody.
I like equality. I think that people should pay pretty much the same tax for their property wherever they are, based on in general terms. I don't think that's a bad idea.
The cost is the
Works
building,
well in Russia.
but Representative Crusoe, you're here because of the people who have primary residences. You're not really talking about camps.
Well, just in general. So the reason why I was here is not to argue about, if it's worth it or not. I came because I'm looking at how the mill rate was calculated, and kind of the way Tim is talking. I spoke with Mr. Dolan about. I saw that the general fund was pretty consistent from the last year. I wanted to find out what is the county? Did the budget exceedingly increase from last year?
Current year went up 7.9%. 2026 went up 5.06%. So we're not looking at large increases in budget lines.
Right, and I don't even know what the percentage of, if there's three components, state, general fund, and your part, I don't even know what the proportion is.
So it was in the budget that was just passed, what the state's services to the UT was, and I think the net was about $18 million. That's a little tricky to read and figure out is how is that apportioned to each county. I believe it's split equally between each county, because the mill rate for the state is the same for each county. But that's just my...
Yeah. So that's what I'm working on this. And I want to understand it, and I think people deserve to understand it as well.
Now, I understand that there was a commission that was just passed to this past legislation to look at property taxes.
Yeah, there was a lot of proposed legislation, and some of it didn't make any sense to try to fix different components. And then they are putting forth a task force. I don't know if there's anybody who would represent rural Maine on the task force.
Actually, the town manager of Stonington was assigned to that task force, and she's as tough as they come as far as property taxes.
Okay.
So
it would be nice if we had, a statewide, assessor, someone like a Garnett or someone.
If you speak with, and I can certainly do this. If you speak with Kate before, because she just gave a presentation on this, so she outlined that. That's why I know that Stonington town manager. She outlined who the representatives are on that website.
So, just to answer, because part of your question was, is this happening anywhere else? I fielded phone calls from 2 towns in my district constantly with taxes going up. Mm-hmm. Most of them related to waterfront, but not all. I just bought a place. Okay. It doubled from the previous owner. Mm-hmm. So, it's happening.
It is, because it has to, because of the law.
Right.
The Constitution says that, and it just has to be that everyone's bought land in Maine, willing to pay way more than what it's valued at. There are some, just like, would you buy your property for what it's assessed at?
Right.
Pretty much. nobody here would say, yeah, I think
Most
that's.
of us couldn't afford it.
Would you sell it for less assessment?
I wouldn't sell it for that, but I'd buy it for that.
Right, I'm sorry, would you sell it, right, would you sell it for that?
Right.
And so, that's kind of where we're at. The problem is, that you have a lot of low income, fixed income seniors that don't want to sell their place, but they weren't planning on a huge property tax bill. Anyhow, that's why I'm here, and I wanted you to know that I think it would be useful if we offer an informational meeting and have be someone from the county can come, and Maine Revenue Services can come, someone in the assessing field can come, and we can give people information and just explain it, and let them ask questions.
It'll be interesting to see how the numbers work out, like what Dave was talking about, because, of course, a very large chunk of my district is the UT, but as well as there's a lot of town, in fact, my own hometown of Canaan. We just had the re-eval, and property values went through the roof, but fortunately, our selectmen know how to do math, and they just, if the budget is $1 million, and because the evaluation goes up and it's going to bring in $3 million, they just bring the mill rate down to where, the numbers make sense, that you're bringing in what you need to pay for the budget. It'd be interesting to see if there's a disconnect there, maybe with the state.
Well,
see if they have a big chunk.
The problem with the UT is that a lot of the land is tree growth. And so maybe you don't have that in Skowhegan, but you have that in Caraton. But the thing is that we get a part reimbursed.
Even
only-
worse though.
You
Even
can see it
worse.
only impacts the state. It doesn't impact the county. It's not like the county's losing out on revenue because of tree growth.
Right.
That's all controlled by the state. Because the state's the one that collects the taxes, not the county.
But even worse, there's very large tracts of land that are being completely removed from the tax rolls as well.
Which ones?
Now, I don't know if that's enough to adjust. Yeah, you don't want to go over there.
Which ones are those?
Looking at you, Commissioner.
Yeah, just all you got to do is look at the map. Look at the map.
Let's look at the map.
That's more than half of the UT is off the tax rolls,
That
or roughly half.
I would.
So
That's right. Look at the map.
Okay.
I
Let's
think
look at that.
I think the good next steps here, and I do like the idea of the informational meeting. I'd be glad to participate. The next step is David has the spreadsheets of all the years worth of valuations. He could add this one in, and then you'll know the numbers. So let's say that based on last year's valuation and last year's mill rate, the amount raised for Somerset County was $8 million. That's enough to cover our budget, enough to cover the state's budget, and enough to make the payment to the county for their portion of the taxes. So it was $8 million. So let's say it went up 10%. So all those numbers went up. That's high, but say they went up 10%. So if you back your way into it and say, okay, the state only needs to raise $9 million this year, and they lowered the mill rate down into the fives, I think you're going to find out your valuation is $1.5 billion. I think that's the way the math's going to work out. Now, the tricky thing is, if you look at the valuation, you see, well, the state raised $11 million for Somerset County. Then you got a problem. So it's like, okay.
Exactly.
So once we determine those numbers, you'll be able to figure that out.
Well, I think that would be a concern. If we're spending too much money in the UTs and causing the taxes to be too high, I mean, I think we want to know about it. Are we foolishly spending money up there? Shouldn't be.
The other thing that it's going to come to your attention is if you find out that camps that neighbor each other on the same waterfront, same shore frontage, same acreage, same square footage, get vastly different tax assessments, they're going to end up here.
Well, and they should. I mean, we kind of gone on record before. We don't like that. I mean, that's not fair. It doesn't make sense. It wasn't fair.
The other thing is that Maine Revenue Service said that they sent out, I want to say in March or April, they send a form out for people to fill in. Now I can't remember what it's called, but it's a form for people to say, oh, we added this, we took this away, we incurred this, flood damage in our properties, whatever it is, you can report to them adds or changes or deductions. So that is something that they do reach out. They do not go and inspect every property. So
That goes on every year to everybody. Or sure, it did.
Our property also received letters, so basically, I just sent it back as no change.
Yeah.
Because none of our buildings have
They weren't on the
except
plan.
when we did the Rockwood Fire Station, we expanded that, but we don't pay taxes, so.
Where does an abatement request go to? Does it go to BMUT?
It was made revenue first.
Okay, so, okay. So I'd like to-
185 days.
And then they'll explain their reasons why they did it. And then, much like you had on, it was Ironbound Pond or one of those ponds a few
Iron
years
Mountain,
ago.
right, in Alderbrook.
But I think that's interesting what you said, that when you find out all the details behind it, what they're doing for the dollar per foot of shoreland, because that's always been a contentious thing.
It's surprising they stick the county with abatement hearings when they're the ones that are setting
Well,
they don't have their own system for abatement hearings at the state
They
level.
know. Sure.
Well, just approve all the abatements. They'll get their thing.
Maybe we should do that.
You keep the question.
Until the valuation book comes out, we're just talking.
Right.
Because until we get numbers, and then we have specific numbers to ask Augusta about, then we can compare and contrast and look at the increase by every lot we choose to. My first goal is total everything up and say, how much money are we collecting in taxes? Our last one, 2024, we were just over $8 million collected in taxes. So if this increase in valuation is going to bump it up, to 12 million, then we can ask some questions.
Right.
Like, why are you collecting so much money? Where is this going? Did the state all of a sudden decide to hire twice as many game wardens? Where's this money going? Because I know what my budget is, so I know what the changes are.
When do you expect to see those numbers?
I expected it this week. They told me when I
So what was
called.
the right?
Yeah, I talked to a guy named Ethan. I didn't talk to Lisa Weinhoff, who runs the office. I talked to Ethan, and he goes, they should be published later today, it was Monday when I called him, or Tuesday. Well, it's not Wednesday, and they aren't on the website yet, but they should be there very soon.
Is there ever any talk in Augusta about changing the tax rate for tree growth? I mean, where it's,
That's the forestry department that sets that.
yeah, because maybe they're not paying enough. I mean, they're getting a hell of a deal. Maybe they shouldn't get. I'm just wondering what the analysis is on why tree growth is so low, especially when it makes everybody else so high. So.
And they can gate it, then the public can't use it.
Design the economic development driver.
Let's do 10 acres or more.
It used
For
to
Weyerhaeuser?
It used to be. It was my understanding. It started off that way because of logging jobs and the mills, and now we don't have that whole industry that we used to have, but they're still getting the benefit.
There's still
I mean, you could ask the question. I think it's worth looking into and see whether that should.
Well, and the problem with the tree growth is that if you want to take your property out of tree growth, you have to pay back all the back taxes.
Right.
Well, it's a 20% penalty. Oh, I haven't done it in a few years, but it's a 20% penalty. But the difference between per acre, what the market value is minus what it was assessed at for tree growth, and then times the number of acres you want to pull out, times the mill rate.
But you still have to pay all the years back, though. Last I saw.
The penalty kind of equates to that. If you've had something in tree growth for 40 years, you don't pay 40 years with back taxes. But the penalty does sort of equate to paying back 70 years of benefit. So.
Well, thanks for your time.
Yeah.
Thanks
for coming. Thanks for coming.
Thank you, Elizabeth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We'll keep in touch.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
And that actually brings up a good segue that we probably need to have a little course in our own assessments and how we obey them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we can do that as a workshop.
Yeah.
Just got to be prepared.
Yeah. So that we're up to date on the abate. Is there any other people who wish to speak during this moment of public comment? Seeing none, we will go right along to the workshop. Introduce strategic plan, vision, mission statement, draft.
So I wanted to just share some of the work that we've been noodling on a strategic plan for the county. And this is something that Commissioner Cezak and I talked about several months ago. I've kind of been trying to get the policy book up to snuff, and we're pretty close on that. Only a few more policies to go over, and then just gauge the interest of the county and the commissioners to see if there's interest in developing a strategic plan. And what that means, because strategic plans can mean different things to different people. So what we've put together here is really just mission, vision, goals, strategies, and action plans. And I had a conversation with some planners at KV-COG today. This is kind of in their wheelhouse. They can kind of help with certain aspects of this. What I was thinking is to lay it out to the commissioners as far as the goals for the county. Now, mission and vision, it's with AI, it becomes quite comical because you can just type in mission statement Somerset County and boom, you'll have all that you can choose from. And what I found gratifying was when I typed it in, they pulled some stuff that I wrote, and they pulled it together. So I was like, okay, it's come around full circle. So from our website. So, and I realize that mission statements and vision statements, while they are important, they're also just kind of feel-good words that are put together. The ones that came from what we put together were basically, for example, Somerset County aims to be a thriving region where residents enjoy a high quality of life, supported by a strong economy, commitment to the common good. The county envisions itself as a place with friendly and transparent governance, fostering economic development and opportunity for all. And then the mission statement is similar to it, but it has more specifics in it. We're continually working to build and maintain the trust of our residents, businesses, and visitors. Elected and appointed team members are committed to ensuring public safety, access to services, local business growth, and maintaining the natural beauty that makes Somerset County unique. Again, those mission and vision statements, I don't want to get too bogged down in that. It's the goals, and this is where I think we come to the commission to set the tone, set the leadership. What do you want our county to be known for? So before I go any further, is there any interest in pursuing this? Is this something worth doing?
I think it's worth pursuing, and I did bring this up to the full commission before, and it struck me that the commissioners were interested because we knew that KV-COG would help us with that.
Okay.
John?
I'm not interested at all in it. I'll tell you the reasons why.
Are you being contrarian?
Well, I've sat on a bunch of boards where we spent a lot of time developing the so-called strategic plan. And after it's developed and printed off, nobody ever looks at it again. And I am not exaggerating. I mean, never. And in addition to that, we are a political entity, and the composition of this board may change. And
I did not talk.
We're not beholden to anything that our predecessors have done. So it doesn't have any real lasting effect, I think. And we set policy every. I just don't. I don't think it's necessary. I think it's a foolish waste of time because it doesn't get us anywhere. Nobody ever looks at these things. There's a whole industry of people that organize workshops and things to develop your strategic plan, and they charge a lot of money, and they have this. They put the flip charts up on the wall, and everybody has a feel-good moment, and spend 1 or 2 days doing it, and then it is over. The box is checked, and nobody ever looks at it again. That's my experience, so I'm not in favor.
You're kind of vague there, so I'm not really sure where you landed on that. So.
Well, I like to be as vague as I can.
Glad we're suddenly a political organization and not administrative. I'm not sure exactly what has changed in the last 2 years, but the last 2 weeks.
Did you say something?
No.
So let's
proceed with the goals.
Yeah, so I was going to say, even if we remove the idea or word strategic plan, is it fair that each commission should have some goals for the county and have maybe an overarching idea of this is kind of what the county, what the priorities of the county are, and so that will help the next elected official that comes on or the next person that's hired to say that this, and that person can put their own input into that. That's kind of the overarching thing. So, and again, these goals are based on my observations. We haven't really done a whole lot of input from other people. So, and these are not AI generated. I came up with outstanding public safety measures, fiscally responsible budgeting, customer-focused service, improved public health, and stimulated business investment. What's your thoughts on those?
What does customer-focused service mean?
We have many departments here that are public-facing, registry of deeds, probate office, and so one of the things that from my background is always making sure the people that are public-facing are treating those that come through the door with the most respect and compassion and whatnot. So, and that's from my retail background.
Well, yeah, all this great stuff. It probably ought to be in the charter. I mean, if it's going to have permanence, it'd be something we can always look to for guidance. But all of us that work here, I think we all agree that basically, in terms of sort of generally speaking, good government, which usually encompasses all of these values, doesn't it?
So I had a conversation with somebody about the difference between a charter and a plan. And a charter is organizational, and a plan is operational. So the charter, you look at the charter to see, okay, what's the structure of your government? How are people elected? How are vacancies filled? How are budgets done? That sort of thing. It's really organizational, and then the operational day-to-day stuff is more how you carry out the plan and so forth. But I think to your point, you could add this language to the charter, and so.
It's harder to change the charter than it is to change the plan.
It's exactly right. Right.
That's why you have the strategic plan, so that you'll be able to have more flexibility and mobility.
Well, as different commissioners come on and the times change, there may need to refocus on some other things.
Exactly.
Well, that's my point. I'm not really worried about this. I mean, it seems like this stuff is so basic. We all just have. We all. I think we all pretty much agree with all these are very worthy things we should always try to keep out front. And I don't know if it has to be embraced as a strategic plan. I hate to be so negative about it, but
No, your opinions are not unique to you.
So I'm a goal-oriented person for myself, for my patients that I work with. And setting goals, no matter what the level is, I think is a great idea. But what needs to happen is we set these goals. If we set these goals like this, and I like them, is that we've got to show the progress somehow. Mm-hmm. That's probably my thought. So, but I like that, especially your top one, an outstanding public safety measures, because we know there's a lot of work that needs to be done with public safety within our county. So there should be goals for something like that, but goals keep us focused, keep us on task. Goals help us to move forward positively and show progress, I guess. Mm-hmm.
I'm happy to go forward, see what KB Cog can help us with.
So if that's the consensus of the board, I did talk with Katie Cog today, and there was a couple elements that I thought would be good if they helped with. Once you determine your goals, then there's the matter of establishing your strategies and your implementation, your action. That really probably shouldn't be done in a vacuum. It should include the department heads. It should include a larger group of people. So I was looking to KB Cog to maybe help facilitate some of those larger conversations. This doesn't have to be done during a commissioner's meeting. This doesn't have. You can be as involved as a commissioner as you want to be. So this doesn't require the flip charts and the fancy colored paper. So because KBCOG does this for comprehensive planning and so forth. The other thing that I thought would be beneficial for KBCOG is once you have something kind of formulated, you need to have the impact of or input of your constituents because you're a county government. And right now you serve the municipalities, the plantations, the townships. So KBCOG could be a good avenue to push that information out and get some of the feedback. Because people will tell KBCOG that Somerset County stinks at this, where they may not tell us that it stinks, or they may say good things.
Shouldn't that be the first step, actually, before you set your goals?
Well, you have to have input on something. And so you don't want to leave it out there and say, hey, what do you think of Somerset County? That's way too broad, right? Especially if you just got your tax bill. So I would recommend kind of formulating something and then putting it out for public input. And let KBCOG, gather that, tally that information. And from that point, you can adjust your goals if your goals need to be adjusted. If somebody says you're missing this important piece, then it would be worth revisiting and looking at. So there would be a cost to this because this would be a proposal beyond the scope of what we pay KBCOG in our dues for. So if they were to offer this service just like they do to any town, if they do a comprehensive plan, they do the public hearings, they do the follow-up. So I was going to ask them to present something, and that way I could get back to you on the fiscal cost of doing something like this. And then we proceed, or it could die right there. So
Let's get that aside.
On your list of goals and strategies, I mean, are these? Are you especially on strategy? Say, for instance, there's a pretty long list there. Is that as much of an example as it is things that are hard and fast that you feel that we?
Those are just examples. I was just trying to logically take from your mission vision, create goals, take from the goals, create strategies, and most of these things we already do.
Right.
Pretty good at most of them.
Right. And so I picked the good ones. There's some things that we probably ought to address that aren't so good, but that's
I think we do all of them.
right. And that's why they're easy for me to come up with. So, but again, this is primarily just an example.
I think I like this as much. So I know when I first came on board, there were a lot of things in policy that it doesn't seem like they were at the top of the pile. People were really paying attention to them. They'd been buried for years. Really, oh, hey, look, this is kind of what we're supposed to be doing. So I think keeping some of these things, up front is helpful. And what was the one in here that I picked up? Want to maintain competitive wages and benefits, right? Of course, in a lot of cases, we're obviously looking at, the fiscal issues and trying to keep costs down and everything else. But we do know in some situations it catches up to you, and then all of a sudden, or training, those sorts of things. I wouldn't be real interested in training people just to check a box, but if it's necessary, then it makes sense.
I think in the case when I came on, there were 3 commissioners that were within 6 or 8 months of being commissioners for the first time. And so, looking back now, a couple of years ago, would you have benefited from something like this to say, this is what county government does? Because that's often the question that you get, right? What does county government do? Would it have benefited a newly elected commissioner to be able to look at this and say, these are our priorities, these are the things that we focus on?
I guess I would look at it a little bit differently. Is I would look at that and say, where are we when it comes to these?
Okay. Are we reaching? Right. Okay. All right, I'll follow up.
Might want to put in cybersecurity as well.
Mm-hmm.
Follow up. Thank you. Any other comments on strategic plan vision? Except for John. Okay, policy review, public records policy.
So this can be pretty simple, I believe. I looked at our current policy, which is really only a couple of years old. It was drafted before some of the more recent changes to FOIA and FOA. FOIA is the federal law, FOA is the state law for access to public documents. And there's a lot in here that's already just pulled right out of state statute. So I thought a more simple approach would be a one-page document that simply says, our policy is that Somerset County will provide access to public documents in accordance with state and federal law. And basically have a reference to it within that document. So the current policy is about 5.5 pages long. My recommended policy is a one-pager.
So you say that, and then there's some exceptions, or is it just that we follow the state law?
We follow state law, and in the updated version, it provides links to the exceptions. Because one of the state laws that changed about FOIA, and in the sheriff's office, Christian Washburn is the go-to person on this. If you deny someone access to a public document, you have to show and link to the state statute that allows you to do that. And so that's basically what our policy says we do and we will do.
Do we do anything over and above that? I mean, so like a lot of things with state statute, right? That's the minimum, but they do allow you to go beyond that. Do we have anything that's beyond?
As far as access to public documents, right. I don't think there's much gray area there.
It's just
We cannot exempt things that the state has not chosen to exempt already.
That's correct. Right. We can't go beyond.
Yeah.
Right.
Right, but on the other side, adding to. So there's other documents.
Our FOIA requests, they're consuming a lot of time.
Right.
I'm almost having dedicating someone a third of their time to the FOIA requests. They're coming in fast and furious.
Well, most of it's that Jake guy from the.
Yeah.
But there's not much we can do about it.
No, there is nothing we can do about it. You are correct. I'm just telling you that in the last 10 years, there has been a drastic increase in FOIA requests.
So it's easier and less cumbersome to say we're going to follow state and federal law than it is to try to create a document that gives all those ins and outs and ups and downs.
Right. I'm just asking if we currently had anything that was different that we would either add or not.
Well, in this old policy, it goes into excruciating detail about coming in and looking at documents. That's not the pattern anymore. People don't call and say, I'd like to come in and look at your documents. They want you to email 100 pages to them.
And that finesses a lot of arguments about who pays for copying costs.
Right, and that's all laid out very clearly within state law.
It's clearly not enough for the time it takes to gather all the information that's requested, but that we do have to follow the state law on that.
I think it's a welcome change. Anything you can make policy shorter and more clear.
Yeah.
It's easier to follow because people will read it if it's shorter.
Maybe.
You'll at least start it. First paragraph.
Right.
Just read the headline.
Never.
That's all they read. Okay, well, if there's no objections, I'll move that forward to the next agenda. But give it a policy look.
Number 3, discuss public engagement regarding appointed register of deeds. I think you find some information. Draft 2.
So apparently the current register of deeds wants to be a media darling. So.
Not true.
So in supplements to your packets, we laid them on the desk there today, there's a press release that I put some points together, and then Tanya in Deeds has drafted a couple of different versions and maybe scripts for public service. And I think there's a lot of good stuff in there. I didn't know what, as commissioners, you thought the best strategy would be to get this information to the voters.
Well, on the press release side, I would like to change opt out to amend.
I think Commissioner Alsop has read.
I'd like to work with you on the press release
Okay.
at a later time.
Yeah.
And you too, obviously. I think it'd be shorter.
And the other change I meant said on the third to last paragraph was You have, I just said, in November of 2023, 40% of the voters supported the idea. Last November, with strong voter turnout, the number of voters increased to 44% in support. I wanted to make those positive statements, not...
I see, against. Yeah.
What's our timing of something like this?
And then in this draft, the second draft, the second to last paragraph, I did make a change. It says, lastly, we would like to know that we take this request very seriously and we support this change to be in the best interest of our county. So that shows positive reinforcement. So please join us November 4th, and when we vote yes on question 3, or referendum 3, or whatever it's going to turn out to be on the ballot.
Would this be a Facebook post or something, Tanya, with you and Arlene, and do you be on camera?
Yeah, that's my understanding. I've never done this before, so I was chatting with Commissioner Cizak about it. He suggested that I chat with Tim. Tim apparently has some ideas on who would actually do the recording.
Yeah.
We'll keep it to about 1 minute so we don't lose the audience. That's why you have the second draft there, because the first draft was around almost 3 minutes. And then that's my idea, is that it goes public. We can share it on Facebook. It can be shared on the cable, local cable outlets. Maybe go on our website. Our own IT department can work with us on that.
Yeah,
on our own YouTube.
Maybe Warren Sentinel.
Sentinel. Yeah, that's the idea of it. Yeah.
Maybe you could reach out to a PAC.
What's that one?
We were thinking of that.
I can't believe you just said that.
Joel has
I don't even want to get into partisan politics. Would we start? I keep forgetting.
So really, this is a November 4th election.
This year.
Which means that absentee ballots will be available early October, which means the ballots will be available late September. So it's really, it's pretty quick. I would imagine, I would recommend either the public TV access down in Fairfield or the one in Madison, John Harlow, I know John. And so what you're able to do there is just what you said, you can do it, and it really doesn't have to be exactly a minute, because there's no timetable on cable access television. But to your point, the shorter the better on social media.
Mm-hmm.
And
if you do a vertical video as opposed to horizontal, that's anyway. I can tell you.
Or perhaps Commissioner Steckis will publish.
No. I have a face for radio.
John, did he do the last one with you?
Harlow did the one with me.
Yeah, he's good at it.
I think we can work that out.
So we'll chat.
Yeah, we'll take care of that probably in the next early September. About
John could help with that, and he can supply us copies.
Right.
Yeah.
And we can get it to Fairfield's cable station.
Yep.
But there are some things on social media where you can greatly improve your views and everything else. So I'd be happy to share
That would be good, because really this is a targeted audience. We're not really trying to reach Augusta or Bangor.
Right.
You're trying to reach the folks in Somerset.
Exactly.
Awesome.
Would we use the local sort of community pages that exist?
People need to know it's not.
You can.
Exactly. Sounds
If they allow you to.
Right.
That's what happened.
They
The
allow
whole
it.
commissioner thing,
Yeah.
the selectmen wanted it, and shoved it down that hole.
Yeah.
Totally.
Right.
This
Yeah, this
comes
is
from
good
the
for the rest.
Register of Deeds itself with a former Register of Deeds and a long-term employee. So it's wonderful. It's brilliant. Thank you. I like it.
Yes, you're welcome. Thank you all for supporting it. I think it will make a huge difference. It's like Commissioner Johnson just said, it's not coming from the commissioners. It's coming from our office.
Yeah.
And we agree with you. We are in agreement, and
Yeah.
people need to know that.
I trust you more than I do us.
Yeah. If we don't get it this time, we'll get it the next time.
We'll just keep doing
Can't
it.
stop it.
All right.
Good.
We all set? Moving forward. No public hearings, new agenda items, commissioners only. If we have anything. Administrator report.
So the submitted report's pretty short. I did spend 3 days at the Maine Town, City, and County Managers Association training last week. It was very good, very beneficial. Good turnout, about 120 people there. So the state was well represented, and the counties were well represented. There were four of our county administrators were there. So the MCCA convention, the Maine County Commissioners Convention, is coming up in a couple weeks, September 18th and 19th. So if you would like to sign up for that, I can certainly help with that. Send me an email and I'll get you registered for that.
What's the date on that, Tim?
September the 18th and 19th. It's Thursday, Friday.
Okay.
So they're hoping to have a Saturday morning luncheon. They're trying to get Senator Collins to come, but that's not been finalized. So,
Oh, is that going to be a luncheon? I thought it was going to be a breakfast.
I'm sorry, breakfast. You're right.
Yeah.
And really, that's all I had. I'm trying to get an early jump on the Spirit of America Awards. We're going to try to do those maybe the second meeting in October or the first meeting in November. So we're working on that now. That's all I've got.
Okay. You had down here the jail standard Zoom meeting. On your administrative report.
Yeah. I participate with Sheriff Lancaster every other Thursday. And that's the Jail Standards Council. We meet by Zoom.
Anything new and exciting for the jails?
Well,
Standards Council?
the legislature is out of session right now, so all the heads are now cooler. But
We're reviewing the 1992, there was a law that passed that said that if the state mandates something, they're responsible for 90% of that cost. Right now, we're looking at some of those standards that the DOC has placed on county jails, and what would we do those? Would we do these standards anyway? But if it's beyond what we would normally do, is the state paying that 90%? So we're reviewing those standards now.
The
I
unfunded
have to tell you,
mandate.
I have to tell you that our county administrator really does a really great job in that council.
Thank you.
The supplemental budget request for CCPSC,
Yeah.
what's that?
So that's the County Corrections Professional Standards Council, or the Jail Standards Council. We probably need, we being the council, probably need to have a supplemental request in the next month or two
Request to who?
to the governor for more money for jails.
So we've been flat funded by the state for the last 2 years at that $20.2 million. The governor has agreed to $4 million of one time for our MAT. That $4 million is statewide. It's not just to Somerset. So we're trying to put together, we're really starting to look at this comprehensively and put together numbers that really reflect the cost of the jails and the state's responsibility to the county jails.
Whomever emerges as the candidates for governor, I believe this council will try their very best to get in front of them to stress what the counties are providing for public services in mental health and substance abuse issues at the very front line. It staggers my mind. I did not realize that county jails see 30,000 intakes a year. And so some of those are frequent flyers, right? So you can't say 30,000 people, but basically you're doing 30,000 intakes a year for people that over 3/4 of them have mental health or substance abuse issues. And so it's really fallen upon the property taxpayers of the county to provide that service. And the legislature just doesn't understand that.
And have we had any news on the idea of having our inmates retain their Medicare coverage while they're serving time? Or is
So that's commonly referred to as the 1115 waiver. So that has left the state of Maine, and now it's been sent to the federal government. And there was a public comment period that the sheriff and sheriff association put together some public comments on that with the help of Dr. Elaine O'Connor. And Dr. O'Connor operates our 7-day program here at the jail. She did an excellent job putting comments together. So the public comment time is closed. However, DHHS in Maine estimates that the best case scenario is this would be available in July 1st, 2027. So it's not something that's going to benefit anyone real soon. So,
But the positive note, it is in the works. There are other states that are doing this. So we're not the first. So there is some thought that we will be, that the state of Maine will be accepted. So, but a lot of work has gone into that.
So the best I can tell, the way it trickles down to benefiting the county is right now we pay $1.8 million for a medical coverage for the inmates. So that $1.8 million could be offset a little bit if that company that provides it is able to charge Maine Care. And they'd be able to charge Maine Care retroactively back 90 days from the time the person is released. So if a person is here for a long time, they don't get the Maine Care coverage. County jails, though, however, the average stay is only a couple of weeks. So any medical treatment during that time could be charged off. So really, once the waiver's in place, then all the counties have to sit and renegotiate with all their medical care providers for the inmates to see how much is going to save them. So it's really not an immediate savings to the county. It has to be kind of negotiated through.
And what is still in negotiation right now is the state, the counties did the work, but the state is going to take advantage of it first and then move it out to the counties.
Right. We're hoping that Somerset is in a strong enough position to be one of the first jails to benefit from this. So.
Well, that's great. Thank you. Finance report.
Next week, we have the auditors in-house. So this week, I'm scrambling to get all the documents ready for them. The undesignated fund balance is that we expected. The outcome hasn't changed. I did put a different form or a report in your package to show a different way to look at our expenses, because throughout the year I've been telling you that we've been saving on labor costs and the driver. Well, this document shows that in FY 2025 we were under plan or favorable to plan by roughly 1.2 million just for the general fund in labor costs. So we came in at $1 million favorable for the general fund. All of it really is due to labor savings. So that's good but bad, because if we have all these positions filled and so on, then we're not going to keep seeing it. And the big offset is related to the body cams, because we put that through because we knew we had surplus funds.
Is that the Sheriff's Office Administration line? 244?
Yeah, that's their portion on it. If you look at the DA, District Attorney, that's 70,000. Same area, 70,000 associated with body cams. Any questions or anything about that report? Do you like the looks of that report? I can start.
I like it.
I can start doing something like that, so not only can you see it by department, but you can see it by expense category.
Anything else? Any other questions? Dave?
Right now in the UTs, the Rockwood Transfer Station is the primary thing we're working on. The EP has kind of got on the ball, and they're checking all the transfer stations around the state, seeing who's been not following all the rules. Our primary issue up there is the burn pile. The ashes need to be tested to see if they're contaminated. If they're not contaminated, we can just get rid of them, probably in Norwich Walk with waste management. If they're contaminated, that's going to be a whole different issue. I have received a contract to go forward and have the testing done. Initially, the estimate was about $24,000, and that was them bringing up their own excavator and operator. So I said, well, how about if I supply that? So they came back with a new number of a little over $13,000. So I would like to move forward and hire them to do that work. And then determining what the outcome is will determine how we respond to it. Because if it's contaminated with lead, which is the big thing everybody's concerned with, there's only like 2 states to get rid of that stuff in, Alabama and Michigan. Very expensive process. So I'm not really worried about that yet, because if it is contaminated, we're going to be budgeting for several years in the UT budget to generate enough funds to get rid of that ash, hauling it out of state. But that's what we're doing. There was training today, transfer station training. I did it in my office, stage 1. And Chris Roy was there in person. He is our manager up there, Kennebec Disposal. And he was there in person training. He took both sections, and there'll be a test after it. I just did section 1 myself here. So hopefully everything that needs to be done, we can get on top of it, correct any errors we have, and move forward. But I would like to sign the document, the contract, send it back, and then we'll schedule things probably this fall, and then come up and test the ash.
So are these piles of ash, I don't know the size of it up there, but I would assume there'd be many piles of ash throughout the county, and just municipalities have been burning for years. And
Yeah, I mean, anyone that has, a fireplace out front of their camp or campsites would have those. But we have been burning at the same site for probably 40 years or more.
But haven't a lot of town, quote, dumps been doing that? as well?
No.
Yes.
But they've stopped burning.
But do they have to truck all their stuff
Yes.
to Michigan?
Yes, they do.
If it's contaminated,
It's contaminated, they do.
Yeah. Madison went through that.
Did Madison do that?
Yeah, Madison had to pay, that's right, I'm trying not to scare Dave, Madison had to pay $220,000 to remove it.
Is that zero tolerance for lead, or is there a threshold?
I don't know what the.
I think there's a
There's
threshold.
got to be some allowed.
Unfortunately, in Madison, it was a whistleblower type thing. So somebody called DEP on them.
Well, what's interesting is landfills are taking construction debris that could be painted with, and they're putting them in the ground all over the state.
Right,
But
exactly.
ash that has, it's the same thing, it's just burnt down.
Yeah,
It makes no sense.
Yeah, one of the things that they mentioned in the training today, which wasn't mentioned on what we were doing wrong in Rockwood, was the ash is supposed to be kept under a building, but that's if someone's bringing in ash.
Similar to a
We're burning at that site, so you're not going to burn inside the building. So that was just something that caught my attention. So
Only Washington, D.C. can come up with stuff like that. Right?
we are going to get it tested. We're not burning currently. Everything that's brought in is collected, put in a big 40-yard dumpster, and being brought to Skowhegan to get chipped.
Okay.
So the carrier is chipping it here in Skowhegan. Just to mention, there's also one of the papers to sign is the contract with Chris Roy, because we awarded that, I think, a couple meetings back. So that's just in the to sign pile. But that's kind of what we're working on. Right?
So is the reg that basically forces us to ship it out of state, is that a state reg? Or is that-
No, there's no place in the state that will take contaminated ash. And from what I've been told, Alabama and Michigan are the only two that have sites that will accept contaminated ash. You know, my hope is that it's not contaminated, because for years and years and years, what was burned there was dry cut out of the lakes, brush, trees that people cut down on their property. So there's going to be a lot of just natural ash. But if you look at the burn pile from earlier this year, there's a lot of stuff in there that should never have been burned. And we had, until I think last fall, our tenant was like 80-something years old, so he wasn't climbing through the pile pulling out materials. So,
And we can stow about when the people come and just give them that bucket.
yeah.
Might be worth it.
Yeah, well, it's weird because the contract, they apparently turn the whole pile over and do multiple samples. I thought you'd go with a core and they'd just take cores. Nah, they turn the whole thing over and take samples all around the place. And that's it.
Thank you. Tanya, did you have any more to add?
Nothing more. Thank you.
Sheriff?
Just a couple things. As you know, the fair's concluded. It was our crew was busy up there during the fair, and the day was hot. So I applaud the guys and gals that work that detail. Central Square, the jail. It looks like that's on track. Tentatively, the last of October to go live. And Monday we started 2 in the academy, Deputy Dorado and Deputy Staples. The 18-week school.
Yes. Is there any sort of hiring pressure from other governmental agencies that are trying to hire local law enforcement to join other federal agencies and things like that?
We have not experienced that yet, as of yet. I know that the federal government is trying to hire a lot of, but we haven't experienced any of that so far.
Good.
While we're still on the sheriff and the jail, I just wanted to talk a little bit about Resolution 144, which is to approve the RFP for a jail work truck. If you had a chance to look at the RFP that's in your packets, this is a different beast. So what they're trading out of is an old Silverado. What they're getting is a 450 or 4500 size engine, chassis, transmission, something fairly large. It also includes a dump body and a plow. So this would be, and the key element of this truck would be an aluminum cab to keep it from succumbing to rust, because it's not going to leave the compound very often, but it is going to be primarily what they salt and sand with. So I just wanted you to see that it's been budgeted for as part of the jail's capital budget, and it's replacing an 8-year-old vehicle. So
I noticed that we didn't have a separate bid opening date and time. Is that because we haven't adopted that policy yet?
no, not necessarily, because it was, and that's a good point, Commissioner. We didn't see this to be very complicated, so this is something that we could probably just do in the midst of the meeting. We don't anticipate many bids on this, and we've tried to make it clear that the bid would include a trade value, so that the commissioner would know right then what the net cost would be. So.
Maybe it's anybody? Think not.
Just Jake.
Okay. You'll do some reporting later. Okay, no unfinished business, new business, resolution 25-143 to approve the changes to Somerset County investment policy.
So we'll
Okay.
Discussion? All in favor? Thank you. Resolution 25-144 to authorize a request for proposal for a maintenance vehicle for Somerset County Jail.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor? Very good. Resolution 25-145 to approve the hiring of Corey Lombard as disciplinary hearing officer at the Somerset County Jail.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor? There we go. Resolution 25-146 to approve the hiring of Leslie Knowles as legal secretary for the Somerset County District Attorney's Office.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor? There we go. And capital reserve expenditures to authorize, resolution 25-147 to authorize the purchase of a commercial dishwasher for the Somerset County Jail in the amount of
53288. $53.28.
Who's the vendor?
$53,000, $288.
How many?
$53,288. So this is that's one commercial dishwasher.
Did you say 53,000?
$53,000. So
Can we get the inmates to watch?
you want to discuss this, or you want a motion before we get too far into this, or you want to discuss this?
I think we need the motion so we can discuss it.
Right. So.
Second it for the discussion piece.
So my understanding from Major Welch was this is something that has been budgeted to replace. It's already in the capital plan for the jail. It's just that they need it sooner than they thought they would. The sheriff has had his sleeves rolled up for the last week, and he's getting dishpan hands.
Who's the? What would it cost annually for paper plates?
Well, so we during COVID, we did do paper plates, and for one meal, our dishwasher has gone down. We're waiting for something to band-aid together until the new one comes, because the new one won't come for 90 days because they build them when you order. But for one meal, styrofoam is about $2,500. So I'm trying to.
Do you use styrofoam anymore?
I was going to say,
Yeah, see, that was illegal. Illegal contraband, so there was a premium on the price.
They're going to deal from Budamaki. I mean, they're in the county.
So we're trying to. We have the vendor coming up now to try to band-aid it together until we can get the.
Who is the vendor?
Good question. I can get that to you.
No.
I don't know.
This is like one of these big Hobart things.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's huge.
So must have been original equipment?
It is original equipment,
Yeah.
and it has to be. Dishwashers by jail standards have to be a certain temperature to be.
so Pine Tree Food Equipment is who we're dealing with. And again, to the sheriff's point, this is one of those mandated items from the state.
Well, I saw a $20,000 lawnmower up at the fair, so the times have changed.
And is it still at the fair?
Take that home with you?
No, passed on that. Although it looked like fun. Well, that did. Well, should we vote on that?
Yeah.
We have a motion. Do you want to vote on it? All in favor of $53,288? See, it's been moved, seconded, and passed.
Just wonder how many people you can hire for that.
Just to watch this. Okay, so let's go. We've accepted that. Good. Nothing from unorganized territory. Warrants, resolution 25-148 to approve the treasurer's warrant for general fund, Somerset County Jail, or unorganized territories, and tip tax revenue for a total of $496,662.49.
Ooh.
Second.
Discussion. All in favor? To go. Thank you. Miscellaneous discussion items. Commissioners only. Nothing. Very good. Thank you. Recess to execute documents.